Locals in the Amazon jungle have been reporting witnessing mysterious entities for the past few months. As a result of these repeated complaints, investigators have traveled to the area in the hopes of gathering proof. Interestingly, a mysterious photograph was posted a few days ago that allegedly showed one of these mysterious humanoids. The residents reported seeing brilliant lights above the region, and some people claimed to have seen them at night and noticed that they emitted a strong glow. The witness, whose statement needed to be translated, claimed to have taken a picture of a little humanoid in the bush while traveling through the Zungara region of Peru. The local resident, who described himself as a farmer and lifelong inhabitant of Zungarococha, was performing his daily tasks when he had an encounter that he couldn't explain. On the 24th of June, while walking through a familiar path in the jungle, he noticed an unusual movement among the trees. Initially dismissing it as a wild animal, his curiosity soon got the better of him. As he approached the source of the movement, he was surprised to see a small, grey humanoid figure standing among the foliage. The being was approximately 4 feet tall, with a large head, slender body, and large, dark eyes. Reacting quickly, the man managed to capture several photographs before the creature disappeared deeper into the jungle. The man's photographs, which he shared with social media groups, quickly started to gain traction, with many questioning whether this creature was linked to the mysterious sightings that were reported back in 2023. One plausible explanation is that the man misidentified a known animal or an unusual human figure in the dense jungle. However, those who have viewed the photographs have said that this isn't likely, adding that a farmer who has lived in the area his whole life is likely very well versed on the native wildlife species. As mentioned, Peru has been trending on social media since August 8th of last year, and this is because more and more locals are coming forward with tales and first-hand reports of alleged entities that have been encountered. A snapshot and update regarding the current situation in the area were sent by someone going by the name of Gustavo, and it appears that the sightings are continuing. The individual claimed that the glowing orb that was seen with the entity, which was described in previous reports, is the reason why the object's legs appear to be emitting light. According to the residents, either these creatures were emitting light directly or they were accompanied by something that was emitting bright lights. Locals have been reporting sightings of them for several weeks, according to one of the residents, who noted that news outlets have only recently begun to report on them. He claimed that because of the intense light they emit, they are very hard to picture and very tough to record. The individual went on to describe how a few of the locals decided to take out one of these creatures, but that bullets had no effect on them, implying that they were protected by some sort of armor. The man went on to explain that the lights are dazzling and that he even had a theory that they might have been put there to confuse the locals. One recurring theme with these sightings appears to be mysterious lights, the source of which is still mostly unknown. Strangely enough, a lot of people in the region have claimed to have seen glowing orbs. Near the locations where these beings have been observed, reports of bright spherical objects have been made. Glowing orbs are generally defined as spherical objects that radiate a mild, frequently pulsating light, according to those who research the unknown. A variety of colors, including white, orange, blue, and green, are described by witnesses. These spheres are seen to travel silently over the jungle, occasionally remaining motionless or making sudden, swift movements. They are not like traditional aeroplanes. They have no rotors, wings, or other obvious propulsion. It's interesting to note that all of these claims are coming out of the US Congress just after a major hearing on unidentified objects. The most recent reports of advanced creature encounters come from a rural area in northeastern Lima, Peru. Earlier reports typically focused on the discovery of unusual technology in remote locations. Villagers in the area report that they are currently under attack from mysterious glowing entities that resemble grey or insectoid beings. The creatures' enormous heads and large black eyes are a recurring feature of the sightings that have been reported all over Peru, and those who have attempted to get close to them always fail, adding that they are very elusive. The Iquitu indigenous people have said that since July 11th, the weird monsters have been attacking the village. One such instance involved a woman being snatched from behind. It's thought that the entities in question radiate dazzling light and are covered in a type of protection that stops them from being harmed, which is one of the reasons why villagers have been unable to present physical evidence of the creatures. The authorities have received a request for aid from the residents of the distant location, and as a result, the Navy and police have been sent to the region, and locals are taking the initiative to guard the area at night. One of the locals described them as having elongated heads and black eyes. This allows them to see everything in their immediate area before vanishing. The residents' only photographic evidence of them thus far is grainy photos, demonstrating their skill at avoiding capture. According to reports from regional news sources, the locals have made a parallel between the mysterious entities and pilakaras, mythical animals that are reputed to possess the ability to eliminate humans. Even if this assertion is improbable, many on the internet are nonetheless accepting it. There is a notion that says these entities are local drone operations. This explanation, however, leaves out the nature of these beings and the reason behind the numerous reports of strange orbs in the region. Like the entire continent of South America, Brazil is one big hotbed for UFO activity. São Paulo, on the other hand, is unquestionably one of the busiest and most dynamic locations in the nation and has seen an abundance of UFO claims and encounters. These experiences can include seeing unusual lights in the sky, seeing objects up close, or even hearing from people who say they were taken inside these alien-looking cars. The events of May 19, 1986, often known as the Brazilian Air Force chase or the Night of UFOs, are arguably the most well-known of all. During the nearly 7-hour-long pursuit and intercept missions, multiple military jets visually observed at least 20 unusual objects over São Paulo on the relevant night. Numerous locals, extending as far as Rio de Janeiro, reported witnessing the weird, unearthly vehicles in addition to the military witnesses. In the Guaratingueta incident of 1994, several witnesses reported seeing a low-flying UFO while returning from Rio de Janeiro to São Paulo. Not only were there several witnesses to this encounter, but a few of them had prior aviation expertise. In addition, several additional witnesses would ultimately provide their own accounts of what they had witnessed, which strengthened the witnesses' version of events. However, as we will see in a moment, there are a lot of lesser-known accounts from this part of Brazil. João de Freitas Guimarães, a lawyer and professor at the Catholic Faculty of Law in Santos, São Paulo, stated in an August 1957 interview with the Rio de Janeiro television station Channel 13 that he not only saw a flying saucer, but that he actually boarded one on the evening of June 16, 1956. On the night in question, Guimarães claims he made the decision to walk along the beach after dinner at the hotel he was staying at just after 7 in the evening. He was gazing out over the water when he suddenly saw a jet of water rise, which initially led him to believe that he was witnessing a whale surface. But after a minute or two, he realized that it was a mechanical craft rather than a whale coming up out of the sea. Moreover, it was moving towards the beach in his direction. After coming to a rest on the shore, it released a landing gear. Shortly after, he was approached by 2 peculiar individuals who were tall, had fair skin tones, and had blonde hair. The individual in question described in detail that everybody was dressed in a green jumpsuit, which seemed to taper down at the neck, wrists, and ankles. They appeared to be entirely human when they got closer to him. He asked them if they needed help, and he became so convinced that they were testing a new experimental machine that he wondered if that was really what they were. After asking in his native Portuguese, and without getting a response, he repeated the question in English, French, and Italian. But the men ignored him once more. Then an odd feeling came over him. He sensed that these 2 beings wanted him to get into their futuristic vehicle, even though they did not speak to him. He also had a sincere desire to observe the craft at the same moment. Then one of the individuals turned and made his way towards the craft, following closely behind, but with caution. Guimarães trailed the first figure as he ascended the ladder to the craft's aperture, and the second figure followed suit. When he arrived at the object's door, he saw a third individual waiting inside who was dressed precisely like the first 2. The doors of the vessel closed behind them as soon as they were all inside, and in an instant they were in the air. Guimarães saw water on what he thought to be the spaceship's portholes as this was happening. As he wondered if it might be raining, one of the figures spoke through telepathy to inform him that it was actually water coming from the rotation in the opposite direction of the parts that made up the ship, because of a ray filtration device that produced a kind of vacuum around them rather than rain that he could see. Through the windows, Guimarães could see some, but not much, as the vessel began to leave the area. For example, he wrote that they passed through a glorious violet layer and then into an intensely dark area where the stars shone in an extraordinary way. In addition, he stated that he felt the craft shake strongly multiple times, maybe like turbulence on a commercial flight. Later on, he would receive another psychic explanation, explaining that the shaking was a result of leaving Earth's atmosphere. Although Guimarães would subsequently estimate that he was in flight for between 30 minutes, it is unclear how far into space he was flown. Only a few weeks before the final Channel 13 interview, after landing and while still within the vehicle, the creatures begged to meet with him again, and they even provided a date, August 12, 1957. In the months that followed their first meeting, a lot of people found out about what happened that night, even though he insisted he had agreed to the meeting. Av Coqueiro, a senior military colonel, actually paid Guimarães a visit a few days prior to the planned second meeting. He was quite direct in telling him that if it were up to him, he wouldn't go to that meeting and that he would have 2 jet fighter squadrons there to receive the flying saucer. According to reports, a clerk and Guimarães' brother saw this discussion. Whatever the case, he had sufficient reason to avoid the area on the day of the follow-up encounter. According to people he spoke with later in the area, on the date in question, a strange object was observed approaching the area. However, instead of descending, it appeared to change direction and head into the distance, possibly sensing the absence of Guimarães or the potential threat of a jet fighter squadron, should they be on standby and ready to ambush the unearthly vehicle.